Is anyone out there listening? Good. You've tuned into Lavender Town Radio, the only station brave enough to broadcast the static between worlds. Tonight, we have a story for you, a whisper from the shadows, a tale woven from the dark pages of the Pokédex that they never wanted you to read. But first, a small favor. If you find a chilling comfort in our stories, show your support by hitting the like button. It's a small click for you, but it's a beacon for us in the digital darkness. And to ensure you never miss a transmission, make sure you subscribe and ring that little bell. It helps our signal cut through the noise. All right, the signal is clear. Now, are you comfortable? Good. Let's begin.
My name is Kira. For the past 10 years, my father has died 1,000 times in my mind. Sometimes he dies from the cold, his body curled in the snow. Sometimes he dies from a wild beast, its roar echoing in my nightmares. But the version I fear most, the one that keeps me awake at night, is the version in the Alola police force's official file. They call it the Lanakila tragedy, a clean, sterile phrase to describe a nightmare. 10 years ago, my father, Ren Ashikawa, a legendary mountaineer, along with his team of 4 elite Pokémon Rangers, vanished on the summit of Mount Lanakila during a survey mission. 2 weeks later, the rescue team found their camp. And that's where logic ends and madness begins. Their large tent, designed to withstand the worst blizzards, had been torn open from the inside. The 5 men and their Pokémon were found in various locations within a 1-mile radius, some wearing only their undergarments in the sub-zero snow. They had fled, but not from an avalanche or a wild beast. They had fled from something that was inside the tent with them. The official conclusion, signed by some police chief who just wanted the case closed, was hypoxia-induced and paradoxical undressing due to severe hypothermia, a lazy explanation for a horrifying puzzle. I never believed it. My father was a meticulous man. He would never have made such a basic mistake. And there were the other details. The details the police tried to suppress, but which leaked out in the whispers of the rescue team. The injuries, or rather the lack thereof. There were no signs of an attack, but there were things missing. One ranger was missing both of his eyes. Another was missing his heart, the incision as clean as if done by a surgeon. And my father was missing his smile. Literally. His lips had been perfectly excised, leaving a hollow, empty stare. 10 years passed. I grew up with a simmering hatred for the incompetence of the Alola police and a growing obsession with the mountain that took my father. Now, at 22, I have returned to Alola. I'm not here for a vacation. I'm here for answers. And my path has led me to an unlikely place, a rundown, dingy police station on Route 17, and the man sitting behind the desk, looking even more tired than the building itself.
10 years ago, my father and his team froze to death on a mountain, but the cold wasn't what killed them. Nanu didn't look like a former kahuna or a police officer. He looked like an old coat that had been left in the rain for too long. His eyes were sunken, and he looked at me with an infinite weariness as I placed my father's old case file on his desk. "The Lanakila tragedy," he said, his voice a gravelly rasp, showing no surprise. "I knew you'd come here one day." As it turned out, Nanu was one of the first officers on the scene 10 years ago. He had been obsessed with the case, not out of sympathy, but because of its offensive lack of logic. "Forget what the papers wrote, kid," he said, pushing a cup of cold coffee towards me. "Hypoxia-induced hallucination is an explanation for the lazy. Your father and his team were the best. They would never make such a basic mistake. The question isn't why they died. The question is how." He opened a drawer and pulled out an old, yellowed folder, much thicker than the official version I had. "This is my copy. I kept it, and I added my own questions to it." He flipped to a page with crime scene photos. Question number 1. Why cut the tent from the inside? If a wild beast were attacking, they would defend, not flee blindly. If it were an avalanche, they wouldn't have had time to cut. This suggests the attacker, or the source of the panic, was inside with them. He pointed to another photo, a close-up of a ranger's body. Question number 2. The wounds, clinically clean. No teeth marks, no claw marks, as if done with a surgical instrument. But no instrument was found. So what took his eyes? He flipped to the last page, where there was a photo of my father. I turned away, and the biggest question, Nanu continued, his voice low, why those parts? Eyes, heart, lips. It doesn't have the logic of a predator. It has the logic of something else, something that was choosing. I hadn't expected this. I had expected indifference. Instead, I had found a sharp mind just as tormented by the same questions that had haunted me for a decade. "I'll help you," Nanu said, yawning, "but not because I think we'll find an answer, but because an old puzzle deserves a fresh pair of eyes. We'll start by testing the hypotheses."
"My first theory at the time," Nanu said as we drove along the Ula Ula coast, "was a ghost type. Something that could induce hallucinations, panic, and perhaps make a physical attack. This led us to the abandoned thrifty Megamart, home of trial captain Alola. If anyone knew about unusual spirits, it was her. Alola, now a young woman, listened to our story with a seriousness that belied her age. "A Froslass?" she asked, after Nanu mentioned the idea. "Possible. They can create illusions, and they freeze their victims. But they don't cut so cleanly, and they leave a very distinct cryo-energy signature. The rescue team would have felt it." She closed her eyes, seemingly communicating with the Mimikyu and Gengar around her. "No," she said after a moment. "No. No spirit on Lanakila carries that kind of hatred or obsession. The spirits there are quiet. Your father's case, Kira, it feels like a singular event, not a lingering curse." The ghost-type theory was dismissed. Nanu's second theory was even stranger. A psychic type, perhaps something alien like a behem. Explains the panic and maybe the surgical wounds. We spoke to an old scientist at a small observatory. "Behem?" he chuckled. "We've tracked them for years. They're curious, but timid, and they leave traces. Electromagnetic radiation, strange metallic fragments. The Lanakila case file has none of that." The psychic type theory was also dismissed. We were back where we started, left with only questions and a growing sense of frustration. "There's only one possibility left," Nanu said that evening, as we sat in his police station, surrounded by old maps. "The culprit isn't supernatural in the traditional sense. It's a predator, one we've never seen before. And the only way to understand a predator is to walk into its territory." After every theory failed, we had one option left: return to the mountain where my father died. Returning to the mountain was a reluctant decision. Nanu hated the cold, and I was terrified of what I might find there.
but it was the only logical step left. "We're not looking for bodies," Nanu said as the helicopter took us up. "We're looking for anomalies, things that don't belong." We landed on a flat area about a half-mile from my father's old campsite. The air was thin and bitingly cold. The silence was absolute, so profound it made my ears ache. We spent the day searching. Nanu, with a detective's eye, pointed out the small things. No tracks from Sneasel or Piloswine in this area. It's like other predators are avoiding this place. I found something even stranger, a pine tree encased in ice, but it wasn't natural ice. It was crystal clear, and inside it, a fletchling was frozen, its wings spread as if in mid-flight. It wasn't a dead bird, it was a sculpture. As the sun began to set, painting the mountain in eerie shades of orange and purple, we found it, a cave entrance that wasn't on any map. It was almost completely hidden by a wall of ice. "This is it," Nanu muttered, pulling out a Pokeball. "Whatever's in there, it doesn't want to be disturbed." We stepped inside. The interior was not a raw ice cave. It was an art gallery. The walls were made of crystal clear ice, and inside the ice was its collection. They were mountaineers, explorers, trainers who had vanished on this mountain over the centuries, all perfectly preserved, frozen in lifelike poses. And at the end of the gallery, on a high ice pedestal, were its most prized pieces, 2 brilliant blue eyes suspended in a sphere of ice, a heart still faintly beating inside its crystal cage, and a smile, preserved in a thin sheet of ice, still turned up at the corners. My father's smile. And then it appeared. It drifted out of the shadows, an ethereal white figure. It had the shape of a woman in a white kimono, but it was not a ghost. It was a creature of ice and snow. It didn't look at Nanu. It looked at me. A feminine voice, melodic and cold, echoed in my mind. "You are like him. You have his eyes." It was talking about my father. Nanu was right. We had found the predator, but we had been wrong about everything else. It wasn't a beast, it was an artist, and it had just found its new inspiration.
We found its lair. It wasn't a cave, it was an art gallery made of people. Before I could react, it attacked, not with a blizzard, with a wave of memories. My mind was flooded with images of my father, but not my memories, its memories. I saw it watch my father's team for days. I saw it become mesmerized by their strength, their health, and above all, their spirit. And then I saw the final night. The Froslass didn't attack them. It created an illusion of a warm home, a crackling fire, and waiting loved ones. My father saw my mother and me. The other rangers saw their own families. In the freezing blizzard, it gave them the kindest, cruelest gift of all, hope. They didn't flee in terror, they fled in love. They cut open their tent, shed their heavy clothes, and ran out trying to embrace the warm phantoms it had created for them, only to freeze to death in the arms of a lie. The agony of witnessing that made me collapse. "Kira, snap out of it!" I heard Nanu yell from far away. The Froslass was drifting towards me, its icy hands ready. I closed my eyes, waiting for the cold, but instead I felt a hard shove. Nanu had lunged and pushed me out of its path. He had placed himself between me and the monster. "You idiot!" he snarled. "I told you you'd get yourself killed." The Froslass stopped, confused by this act of sacrifice. In that moment of hesitation, Nanu's crocodile struck, using Stone Edge to bring down a section of the cave ceiling, creating a wall of ice between us and it. "Run!" Nanu yelled, pulling me to my feet.
And we ran from that horrific gallery, ran from the cave, ran out into the cold night air. Behind us, I heard an enraged, mournful shriek from the Froslass. We didn't stop until the helicopter was in sight.
It didn't want to kill me. It wanted to add me to its collection. And it showed me why my father ran from the tent that night. We survived, but we didn't win. We didn't avenge anyone. We simply stared into the abyss, and the abyss stared back. I am back in Kanto now. The Lanakila case will forever remain unsolved. Nanu has sealed all our reports, burying the truth under layers of bureaucratic ice. Sometimes I wonder if it would have been better if I had never known, if I had just lived with the question instead of an answer so horrifying. I don't have the answer. I just have a cold truth. There are forces in this world, ancient and alien, that we can never hope to understand. They are not evil. They simply are. And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is not to fight them, but to recognize that they should be left alone. My father didn't die by a monster. He died by an artist. And that collection, it's still there, on top of the mountain, waiting for its next perfect pieces. The transmission is ending. The static is creeping back in. Thank you for listening to Lavender Town Radio. Remember, the Pokédex only tells you half the story. We're here for the other half. Your thoughts on this story are valuable. They tell us what scares you. Leave them in the comments. To help us continue broadcasting from the abyss, please hit the like button and, most importantly, subscribe. More subscribers mean a stronger signal, and a stronger signal means more secrets can be revealed. This is Lavender Town Radio, signing off. Be sure to check your shadows. You never know what might be listening.